Hi everyone, it's good to see you. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJ Federation in New York. It's been an honor to be part of a community for a very long time, 3.5 years, sharing Torah and music, blessing and community. We've come to you live a lot of times. So this is our chance to come together on a very sad day on the Jewish calendar. Today is Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av. Where here in Jerusalem, it's a very strange combination of things because, and we'll talk about this, on the one hand we're mourning, on the other hand we're so alive. On the one hand we've rebuilt, on the other hand there's so much that remains destroyed. So let's take a second. One of the traditions on Tisha B'Av is not to greet each other by name, actually. And so even though there's good energy in our community always, it's important to recognize that today, even though it's already halfway past the day of Tisha B'Av, where the energy starts to lighten in New York or on the East Coast, where many of us are, it remains the morning of Tisha B'Av, and that's a complicated time. So let's mark Tisha B'Av as we continue to build our community by saying, hi everyone. A tradition is actually not to greet each other and say, how are you? Even though I really want to know, and even though we care so much about each other. So Paris and North Carolina, Jerusalem and New York, we're all here together for our 848th broadcast. Hi Penny, good to see you. Stan and Diane, you're in North Carolina too, good to see you. Arlene and Sharon, I'm sorry that I'm not saying hi to everyone. I feel like I really shouldn't say hi to anybody given the strictness of Tisha B'Av. But actually, there's enough Tisha B'Av in the air, we learned from a friend yesterday, that we can be a little bit lighter on each other. So, let's say the bracha instead of singing it to mark Tisha B'Av, even in that one way. Let's share a little bit of thinking, a little bit of reflection on this day, and then we'll have Tisha B'Av, and then we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank God. So, bracha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asuk b'divrei Torah. So, friends, I'm sitting in our hotel room, and I sat next to the window. Neshama thought it was a good idea, and I think she was right. You see outside? See, I'm actually facing away from the old city. That's where our window faces. And there are cars moving, and there are buses traveling, and there are people doing what people do on every day of the year. So here I am, reflecting on Tisha B'Av in Jerusalem. For those who are less familiar, just a quick word about the day. Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of the month of Av, is a sad day on the Jewish calendar where we mark and commemorate the destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE, 70 CE, the fall of Beitar, which was the last Jewish stronghold during the Roman assault. People believe that the expulsion from Spain was also signed on this day, as were some of the pogroms in Eastern Europe. Now, whether or not they all happened specifically on this day, and rare is it that tragedy happens in a moment, it usually builds up after a period of time, this has been a day that Judaism has truly marked so much of the sadness. And I do feel it. I'm sitting next to a very sunny window on a beautiful day in Jerusalem, on a complicated day in Israeli history, on a sad day in Jewish history. And all of this combines. All of this. So let me share just a little bit about the traditions of Tisha B'Av, and then share a little bit of the experience that Neshama and I had last night, which was really extraordinary, solemn, and holy. So here, I'll just share that in response to the sadnesses of Tisha B'Av, the traditions are not to eat, not to drink water, not to anoint with anything fragrant, not to bathe, not to be intimate, and in addition to those things, and also not wearing leather shoes typically. In addition to that, on Tisha B'Av, because it's very different from Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur is actually an extremely happy day. You know, a day of forgiveness is a good day. A day of starting again is a good day. But Tisha B'Av isn't about any of that. It's about mourning. And so on this day, we don't learn Torah, not the good parts. You can learn the sad parts of Torah and the sad parts of Tanakh, which is a strange thing. But it tells you that learning Torah is joyful, which you and I certainly know after all of these times coming together to learn. In addition to which, you also don't greet each other. You don't say, hi, how are you? Because you go to a Shiva home, you don't say, how are you? Well, this is a day of Shiva, a day of Yartzeit. Not just for the buildings of the temple, but for the Jewish community that was decimated and assaulted, the losses that we endured on a human emotional level. Those are very real. And we read, as Valerie just said, Lamentations. We read the book of Eicha, 5 chapters of mostly horrible things. It is an expression of primal pain. I don't recommend it in a light way, but I read it last night, and in between the chapters, I was really blessed and comforted to have Neshama sing. She was helping lead services for the Masorti movement here, an egalitarian traditional Jewish movement in Israel, aligned mostly with conservative Judaism in the United States, but it's unique. And its leadership is all Israeli, which is a really, really important part of the rebirth of our people here. But the 5 chapters are about how bad things could get. And it was in the backdrop, actually, of the stones that fell during the destruction of the Second Temple, because we were at the southern wall, which, if you ask me, is the holier part. It's a part where men and women and children can sit together, where there's a little bit more air than the density of what people typically think of as the Kotel. So we're literally sitting right above the fallen stones of the temple, reading the story of the fall of the first temple, singing and chanting. And there were leaders, including Rakefet Ginsburg, who's the CEO of the Masorti movement, from her soul, comparing Tisha B'Av to Pesach. And I'll just, in her name, share a piece of Torah from her. She reminded us that for the Seder on Pesach, we say, B'chol dor v'dor, chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In every generation, a person is commanded to see themselves as if they left Egypt. She said, for Tisha B'Av, she would apply that teaching and say, in every generation, every one of us, she meant every Israeli, but I'll say every one of us, must see themselves as if they had a hand in Israel and Jerusalem's destruction, which is a harsh way of saying we are all implicated in what happens here. We so many times are called to defend Israel on an international stage. It's true. But this moment of Israeli history lines up so terribly poetically with the 9 days on the Jewish calendar, where what the rabbis associate with the Second Temple seems to be all too possible again. Sinat chinam, a hatred that flows freely. And so in this moment, not only am I sitting next to the streets of Jerusalem, and last night was literally at the temple, but I'm here with you in a very alive moment. It was very strange leaving the temple to see hundreds of thousands of Jewish people and others gathering. A lot of people who I thought would be in mourning and walking silently were like riding electric scooters in the streets of the old city of Jerusalem. I can't quite make sense of that, except to say that we are very alive, and we have an extraordinary opportunity to do good with the power that we have finally achieved again. I often define Zionism as the ethical use of power we wish we didn't need. And given Jewish history, we absolutely need it. But given Jewish history, the reminder to act ethically with it, that is no less urgent today than it has ever been. And so, friends, we are told that those who remember the destruction of the temple will merit to be part of the great rebuilding. So let's do that. Let's remember the destruction, because that's the only way for us to truly be part of the great rebuilding our people needs. Hope certainly is a mitzvah, Valerie, as I taught. I believe it very firmly. But this is a day where we sit on the floor as I'm sitting right now. We don't go quickly to the comfort even though we need it so badly. Our people requires a true grappling with our history. History is not simple. It's not always as painful as Tisha B'Av, thank God. But there are too many moments like this, and we dare not be willing to perpetuate the bad parts of our history. We shouldn't hurt each other. We shouldn't hurt anyone. There has to be a way for us to find each other, so that when we sit in the ruins of the temple, we're not looking to the future of a ruin. We're marking history. We're present, we're conscious, we're aware. And this coming Shabbat, though I don't want to jump there yet, will be called Shabbat Nachamu. It's a Shabbat where the prophet Isaiah says, you've paid the price more than twice. Comfort's on the way. Well, I will say for my theology, friends, though it might not be yours, comfort is only on the way if we carry it forward. So let's make sure that we remember the destruction to motivate us to be agents of comfort. Bless you, friends. For those of us who are fasting an easy, meaningful fast, I'll tell you something sweet just before we say goodbye to each other. For the meal before the fast, Nisham and I went and we picked up some takeout from First Station. And we had the most wonderful moment. It was gluten-free, dairy-free, exactly what we needed. And the guy hands it to us, not wearing a kippah. He looks at us and says, Tzom kal lachem, have an easy fast. Aval tedu, you should know, he said, Im Mashiach ba lifnei atzom, lo tzorich latzum. If the Messiah comes before the fast begins, you won't need to fast. So friends, the Mashiach didn't come before Tisha B'Av this year. But who knows? If we carry her forward, maybe we'll be blessed enough to not have Tisha B'Av this way next year. Bless you all, friends. See you soon.